Good morning.
Why did you sip that as he was asking you a question?
He likes to live dangerously. But you good, Ev? Yep, have another sip. Very good.
Don't tell me what to do.
We all fuck it up though. Azerbaijan.
Azer.
Oh
Is it
my God.
Azer or Aja?
Oh, poor Yuki. No wonder he can't afford a cleaner.
Fucking hell. This is deplorable. Hello, everybody. A big hello and a big welcome back to those returning to us like bees to their queen. And an extra big hello and welcome for the first time to all those joining us for their own debut. It's wonderful to have you here with us for another iteration of Idiots of F1, the world's newest and most unofficial Formula One podcast. A podcast that is quickly becoming known for our intentions and approach to tackling the topics no one else wants to go near initially. A podcast that isn't afraid to talk about what everyone's thinking. And even if we get it wildly wrong, a podcast that is willing to take a stab and cast our own observations and thoughts on one of the world's greatest sports. I'm your host, Ollie, your tour guide on this crazy adventure, and with me again for a second week running are two of the F1 world's biggest but lovable idiots, Ev and Tay. Tay, like all those wankers on a second day of work, love to say, good to see you came back for day two, filling in again for the idiot in absence Diggs. Welcome back to the show, mate. How are you this week?
I am good and I'm glad to be back. Excited to be back. How you doing?
Yes, good, thank you. He's learning quickly to ask me how I am. Very good, well done. How's the old US of A treating you in the this first week of June? It's your summer officially, no?
I guess so, yep. It's overcast.
Brilliant.
Down here in sunny SoCal, San Diego, it's overcast.
Very good,
But this happens in May and June anyway.
Now, by way of community request, Tay, can you just keep the language in check this week, mate? We had a few complaints about your potty mouth last week, so if you can just rein that in a little bit. I'm kidding. Look at him. He was genuinely fearful then. I'm kidding,
like,
man.
Are you
fucking relax.
kidding me right now?
Yeah.
I was being so conservative.
Yeah, dear oh dear. Hey, sitting next to Tay, virtually of course, given the 12,000 kilometres that separates you both, is a man that needs no introduction, but because we're doing them, a man that's been donned the F1 expert of this idiot clan, the F1's only Heather Locklear fan, the F1's sexiest voice, to cover but a few, but a man that takes on the name given by his parents, Evan. Hello, Ev. How are you, my dear friend? Having a sip of your coffee?
Why did you sip that as he was asking you a question?
He just loves to leave us in suspense. He likes to live dangerously.
You absolute clown.
Good morning.
Were you good, Ev? Yep, have another sip. Very good. Right, moving on. Now, we didn't call it out last week, but excitingly, the drop of last week's episode was our 10th, our first real milestone other than our debut. Now, Diggs is still off recovering that throat of his, but Ev, 10 episodes in the bank. People said we couldn't do it, and yet here we are, on our ever-growing mountain being pushed up by the San Andreas fault line. How do you feel, mate? Are you enjoying this crazy journey that we're on?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
clearly.
I was one of those people. So proves me wrong.
To be fair, you weren't one of those people. You still are one of those people. It's very rare.
I
that,
regret this every day.
Yeah. He's the
That's
world's
why you keep
most
coming
pessimistic bloke. Yeah, but he keeps on
This
coming
is already
back.
too much work for me.
Yeah. If there anything you had time for, it's a podcast, mate. Hey, in taking a moment to celebrate these wins, I do just want to call out a big thank you for everyone, to those listening, those that continue to tune in every week, those that endure our thoughts and comments, even when they're not technically perfect. You've really made this such an incredible, fun journey. Totally worth all the time and energy being put into it. Obviously not by Ev.
You're welcome.
We're building quite the community and we couldn't be prouder of it. The people that get in touch, the numbers that go up every week because lots of you out there are either making recommendations or allowing the algorithms to make the recommendations based on your listening and the growing interest in the pod and each episode. You're all fucking legends and we thank you big time. Whether you've listened to all episodes or just one, it all helps and keeps us going. So you keep it going. Smile and heart emoji.
Oh, boo. What is that?
Simply the best.
Stop your shit. Well, speaking of kumbaya shit aside, boys, we've got a duty to get on with, so let's get this episode rolling. By way of a reminder, last week's episode covered off everything to do with Monaco GP, where we dove in and unpacked everything on and off track. So we're going to avoid mostly retreading old ground today. For anyone that hasn't had a chance to listen and keen to get up to speed, just jump in after today's ep. It's literally the first episode there below this one. But following a weekend off of racing, it's yet again race week, and we, like the rest of the F1 world, are readying ourselves for this weekend's Baku GP, which will kick off tomorrow if you're listening to this on Thursday. And you notice I said Baku GP, well, because I think that's the official kind of hashtag of it. Well, I put a call out for anyone that's got any questions for the podcast, and one bloke wrote back and said, it's not really a question, but could I get Ollie to pronounce Azerbaijan 10 times because he continues to fuck it up? So you'll note that I've just sprinkled, I'm going to use Baku GP instead of that word.
We all fuck it up, though. Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan.
Azer. Is it Azer or Aja?
Don't ask Taylor.
Aja.
Raja.
Oh, my God.
I think of the tiger from Aladdin. Raja, I think was the name.
Oh, brilliant.
Raja.
Yeah.
Shut up, Jasmine. Right,
Yeah.
we're getting very
You know,
distracted.
it was also known when it first came on, known as the European Grand Prix.
I just said that.
Oh, did you? I didn't hear you say it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Hey, gents, on the basis that it's all right with you, today's episode is going to cover off what's Verstappened in the world of F1 since Monaco GP. We're going to preview all things Azerbaijan, including our tips for this weekend's podium, as well as, most excitingly, expose everyone to another Haas you been paying attention battle, where Tay, you will no doubt do your best to right the wrongs of last week, and Ev looks to continue capitalising on the advantage of Diggs being incapacitated.
He'll win it again.
So,
By 1 point.
with your permission, gents, shall we crack on?
Yes, let's crack on.
Don't tell me what to do.
do this.
Right, as frequent idiots who tune in regularly would know, often we round out each episode with what's Verstappening, pretty much our own quickfire round where we chuck out a few things that's happening in the world of F1, and these two fine gents with me will go round for round commenting on a few big headlines and topics of conversation. And so in the spirit of tradition, we're going to do that up front today, simply because we don't have a race to talk about, with our very own What's Verstappened, where our intention is to get you up to speed with the world of F1 since we last caught up. As always, we've got a bit to cover off, so let's all get you idiots updated with this week's headlines.
Yeah.
Topic number 1, and this is a big one, boys. I feel like this could roll on for a bit, but there's a lot to cover off here. Contract dominoes. Excitingly for Sergio Perez fans, Red Bull have signed the Mexican for another 2 years after showcasing an incredible ability to play the support role to Max last year, and more recently compete consistently at the front of the grid in Red Bull's push for a Constructors' Championship. In doing so, it means Red Bull have all but locked in their drivers until 2025, with immediate and obvious impact to Red Bull returning driver in waiting, Pierre Gasly. Now, a few weeks ago, pod favourite Helmut Marko, just pausing for Ev to throw out a comment there.
What about him?
Yeah, your mate. I'm just checking. You love him. Anyways, Helmut Marko came out and said it was important for the team, as in the entire Red Bull remit, to not lose Gasly. However, with no path to a primary Red Bull seat now, and out of contract at the end of this year, his future at AlphaTauri would surely be very, very unlikely, given they are mostly the team for blooding young future Red Bull talent. And with him leaving a likely outcome, it feels like a substantial domino falling to set in motion the who's where next year circus. So putting aside the rumours of him replacing Ricciardo at McLaren for now, as we're going to round back and talk about Danny and the Papaya team in a little bit, but with potential seats available at Aston Martin, Williams, Alfa Romeo, Alpine and Haas, Ev, where are we likely to see Gasly next year?
Well, I don't think we're going to see him at Alpine, even though that...
Really?
Yeah, Fernando's got his contract's up,
Yep.
but he's indicated that he plans to keep driving for another few years.
But what do you reckon of the appeal? Like, I think he's going to Alpine.
Right, how?
Because
Explain yourself.
Alonso's out of contract at the end of this year.
Yes.
He obviously wants to stay.
Yes.
But whether or not they take him is another question altogether,
They will.
particularly now that Gasly might be there.
No.
And I think that there is something very appealing for a French team to have an all-French lineup. Commercially, I think it's gold for the manufacturer. And obviously with two incredible youngish drivers in Gasly and Ocon, with an upcoming car, and it hasn't been mentioned in the media, but I think it doesn't seem to be one that's getting a lot of traction, because they're all distracted by the thought of him replacing Ricciardo at McLaren. But I would have thought that's a perfect fit for Pierre Gasly.
No.
Well, you think they'll take Alonso?
Oh, 100%.
So you think Alonso will be locked in for another year or two?
That's my Evan lock of the week.
What about Oscar?
Piastri.
Yeah, Piastri.
Well, that's a good point. So if they take Alonso for another year, let's say they lock him in for 12 months for 23.
Sure.
What do they do with Piastri? Because there was a lot of uproar about the fact he didn't get a drive this year, and he's obviously kind of a Renault academy driver or whatever you want to call it. And we've spoken about how incredible his pedigree is.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying Alonso staying at Alpine with Ocon, right? Where's Gasly and Piastri going?
I think that Gasly stays and that Helmut bumps up his contract. And then he stays
But
there
why keep him if you're not going to put him in a Red Bull seat?
because you don't know what's going to happen with Verstappen's come out and said he's talked about how he doesn't plan on sticking around for too long.
Yeah, he just signed a contract.
Well, yeah, I think he's come out and said that he doesn't think he'll be driving, post the end of his contract, which, by the way, is in 28. It's something like that. And it's like, mate, I don't even know what the fuck I'm going to be doing next year. Like, it's all well and good to say I'm not going to be doing that in 6 years' time.
Well, I think Nico Rosberg is perhaps set a precedent here that he won it and then he retired instantly.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, right.
And he seems a lot happier now.
Just get one out of the one on the belt and be on with it.
That's right.
Max doesn't feel like he's that person, though. Tay, I was keen to ask you, I mentioned this idea that AlphaTauri are kind of the blooding of young talent for Red Bull. Yep. The other seat that's in play is obviously Tsunoda. Yep. If they keep Gasly, do they bin off Tsunoda or do they keep both of them? Is there any good talent coming up through the Red Bull Academy that they might be looking at?
Yeah, so there's a few coming up through F2. A couple of guys such as Yuri
Vips.
Yeah, is that Yuri? Is it Yuri? Yeah. Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, well, we saw him in practice a couple of back in Barcelona.
FP1,
I think he was rolling around in Perez's car.
Yep.
Okay.
And they've got so many current drivers and part of their Red Bull juniors that can come through, as well as ones that aren't even part of the Red Bull juniors as well.
I was going to say, Ev, last year, I think everybody would have definitively said there's no way Tsunoda goes around again, but he seems to be doing much better this year. Are you taking one of those younger drivers and getting rid of Tsunoda, or are you giving him another go?
A friend of the show, Helmut Marko, had come out and criticised Yuki. I think
the smallest man alive.
Yeah, the biggest ego alive. So he's, I think at the Monaco Grand Prix, or either before or during the weekend, Helmut had come out and criticised Yuki because he's crashing less, but he's still making mistakes that he probably shouldn't be making, especially at a mid-table team like AlphaTauri. It's perhaps more okay to make those mistakes at Williams or somewhere, or Haas or something like that. But Helmut came out and said that he needs to kind of, now's the time to shape up all. So I'm worried for Yuki, and I think that given how much more commercial Formula One is becoming, it's more important to have a good culture. If you're selling your brand, Pierre Gasly's pretty likable, and then you've got Yuki Tsunoda, who. But
we don't know. I wish we had.
What was it in Drive
to
to
the
Survive where he was like the slobbiest guy in ever?
Yeah. But I wonder how it's going for the Japanese market, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'd be really interested to know how his presence in
F1
Formula One has impacted that market. Is there a Japanese Grand Prix?
Yeah,
the F3 Asian Championship.
So the Japanese driving, professional driving circuit's really, really competitive. Like GT3 racing. So I don't know how many young Japanese men are walking around in fashion-forward Italian couture that AlphaTauri designs.
Yeah.
I'd rather see Gasly and someone else who's more marketable, I think.
Fair call.
I was just going to say, if Yuki, if you're looking at the Japanese market in that level and wanting to keep some sort of form in there, there's still 4 drivers within the Red Bull Juniors that could fill his role from Japan.
Right. Okay.
Really?
Yeah, there's.
Oh, wow. Good research. All right. Well, let's.
I won't say their names because it's bad. I'd mispronounce them, and I don't think that's fair.
Like you would Azerbaijan.
Yeah. Well, any of those. All right. So we've covered. All right. So we think Alonso's staying at Alpine with Ocon. Well, Ev thinks
guaranteed.
Gasly at AlphaTauri and Tsunoda now being the one in question there.
Yep.
Let's go back to Vettel and Aston Martin. So on the basis that I asked last week to whether a Lawrence Stroll Aston Martin ever exists with Lance Stroll, which was met with a resounding no, on the basis that he does take one of those 2 available seats, I don't. It's not actually public knowledge how long his contract is for, but you can be assured that he's obviously locked in. Ev, I've got 2 questions. And Tay, jump in if you've got any thoughts on this.
Can I answer your question with another question?
Does Seb Vettel go around again? And if he doesn't, out of Schumacher, Albon or Piastri, who could you legitimately see in that seat next year out of them?
Piastri, hands down. I think Schumacher.
So you reckon Renault will what do they do?
Release.
They lend him out? They loan him out like English football?
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
That's what
okay.
Red Bull did with what's his face?
Albon. Yep.
Williams. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So as for the only other team with both seats up for option, but on the basis that Red Bull let him go, and how regularly Williams boss Jos Capito has suggested that Albon is their future. Do we see Albon stay on at Williams?
Yeah.
And what happens with Latifi? Does I think, again, we were introduced to Nick de Vries, who's been, quite tightly linked to a Williams drive. Does he come in and form that second seat in a pretty formidable pairing with
that sounds
Albon?
That sounds like a great, I was going to say young pairing, but...
De Vries is 27. And if we're moving away from this whole idea where you're needing to have money to back teams, I think Latifi doesn't stand a chance. And I think if they bring in someone like De Vries, who has incredible amount of experience, not only in F2, F3, but also in Formula E currently, and being the champion of last year as well for Formula E, I think it would be a really good move by Williams.
They got to get that car right.
Yeah.
It's all well and good having two really good drivers. But
but that comes from someone who's got experience in racing and knows what he wants out of the car. So if he's able to give substantial feedback, then hopefully they can get that out of it.
All right, so of all those out of contract, those almost guarantee one, we've filled Alpine with, we're saying that will stay, Ocon and Alonso. Aston Martin, we're saying Stroll and Piastri, which I fear for Piastri. We're saying AlphaTauri with Gasly staying and possibly Tsunoda, but maybe a new driver coming in from the ranks, and Williams with Albon and De Vries. So are we comfortable in making assumptions that Haas and Alfa Romeo will fill their second seats with incumbents Schumacher and Zhou Guanyu?
There it is.
Yeah.
A billion people are offended.
I know, and I feel horrible because
they're all locked down.
I practice it, but then I think
because of their government.
Can you just get that name?
Get political here, folks.
Yeah.
Buckle up.
Zhou Guanyu, right? So we got rounding out. I mean, look, is Schumacher safe? Nah.
He's that last crash cost $1 million.
Another $1 million.
To rebuild the car.
Yeah.
He's come under a lot of criticism from Gunter.
Yeah,
which is surprising because we all, I think everybody thought that Mick was.
He feels like the golden child, right? Like,
yeah, but if he's not, it seems to be there's something about it that Gunter's unhappy about.
So would you? I asked you this question of Danny Rick last week. If you're Gunter, are you holding out for as long as possible to make a call on that, or are you moving now to replace him? Surely you're giving him time. You've got to give him
Look, I tell you what, if I were Gunter and I saw that Daniel Ricciardo and McLaren are agitating and I'm kind of a bit upset with my young driver, Haas were looking good at the start of the season. They're kind of plateaued and maybe gone a little bit backwards. They haven't caught up.
But surely Haas doesn't have the budget to afford someone like a Danny Ricciardo.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. I mean, Daniel's got a lot of commercial backing as well. I would say I would take this opportunity to show agitation towards Mick Schumacher as if to flutter my eyelids at Daniel Ricciardo if he wants to leave McLaren. I think that he would be a great get for Haas, even if it means that Daniel's kind of taking another step down.
That's a massive call.
And it makes a lot of sense to me.
That would have to be their biggest recruitment ever. Like, I know Grosjean and
Daniel
Magnussen.
Ricciardo and Kevin Magnussen in the same car, in the same team. I think that'd be a really good.
But would that be something that would be enticing for Danny?
Depends how much he gets paid.
Surely it's not down to money.
Or if he wants to keep doing it.
Well, look, let's get. We'll cover him off in a second because I have some questions about him. But based on the listing, the seats that we've just nailed, what we're saying is we're going to lose Vettel and Latifi from the grid, possibly Schumacher, with a big question mark still hanging over Danny Rick and what he does in 2023. So let's quickly talk Danny, because the poor lad has well and truly landed in the spotlight of the media. He can't seem to get out of it at the moment. Now, I don't want to labour on this because we've made our own thoughts fairly clear. We've spoken about him in every episode for a few weeks now. I feel like we
called this before it all kicked off.
We did. I raised the question months ago. But look, because we have spoken about a lot, we don't need to speak about a lot. However, I initially claimed he wouldn't see the 2023 part of his contract. Ev, you suggested McLaren should let him go now, or at least give him until season break to then make a more informed, I guess less interruptive move. But Diggs made a good point to me during the week, via text because he can't talk, that albeit many are in line with the thinking of getting rid of him sooner rather than later, and doing so, bringing in a new driver and get them settled in the car for 2023. The question that should actually be being asked is whether anyone could actually drive that car better than what Daniel is. Now, yes, Lando is clearly capable of driving that car better, which many will allude to in defense of the idea that someone could drive it better because someone is driving it better. But there's room to suggest that the car was built for Lando's style. Obviously, he's been with the team for a while, and importantly, he was also the only one feeding back during testing with Danny out because of COVID. Would Daniel be struggling so much if he was able to set the car up more like the Red Bull was? Would he be struggling as much if he'd been inputting at the testing? Putting all that aside, the question really surely is more about whether Daniel believes in himself and whether he still has that confidence to go on. Because if he has the confidence and belief, then I doubt anyone will drive that car better than Daniel. And actually, my understanding, based on what's come out this week, and I think, Ev, you touched on it earlier, is that the contract mechanisms in play, which has kind of grabbed a few headlines, for his contract ending earlier without a payout is actually only within Daniel's power.
Yes.
Zach Brown or McLaren can't be the ones to ask him to leave without paying him out. So if you bring the financial economics into play, on the basis that it's unlikely any driver this year will get more points than what Danny could, you're not going to make back that money that you'll lose from paying Danny out. If they get a Gasly or a Piastri in at McLaren for next year, then sure, he goes at the end of this year. But I think upon reflection and hearing what Diggs had to say when he briefly spoke during the week, then I fall on my own sword about suggesting McLaren bin him at summer break, and I think they need to give him the year to get it right. Tay, Ev, where are you at with it all now we've dived even deeper into some of the variables at play?
Go Tay.
I think they should give him the year. It's a fair point, actually, when you refer to the fact that he had COVID during the testing phases. But in saying that, I think there was something that came out today about, or this week, I should say, about Lewis, about how any great driver is able to adapt to the situations in the cars. It's not always just the car. So for Danny, he needs to have a mental reset.
I think you're right. Like, it's a mental thing more than anything now. And the question seems to be more about, and this is why kind of that idea of Danny going to Haas, and Tay, you asked, would he want to go to Haas? I think if he would be their number one driver there, there's no question about it. I don't think Magnussen gets veto over him. It's clearly a car that has potential, Ferrari-backed engine.
Well,
I think it probably serves his driving style better. Yeah, Magnussen absolutely did prove it. So, yeah, I think if Danny wants to keep going on in F1, if he's still got that passion, which he has come out and said, I still see myself driving for years. I just don't want to drive for 14th place every week.
He's making a lot of noise to say that he wants to stay on, but he's not performing like it. He's not. And not just on the track, but off the track. He's not, his usual beaming self, which is quite telling.
What did he have written on his helmet during the week? FEA?
Fuck them all.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there's. I can only think of one football player who's ever bought themselves out of a contract to then have to wait until the end of the season before they can play for their new team. So Daniel's not going to give it up halfway through the season for nothing.
Well, he'll be wanting to put his best foot forward for somebody else to take him, surely.
So, yes, and that means that he'll stay until the end of the season.
End of the year, yep.
Yeah.
If that's not the biggest, boldest claim you've heard yet, Danny Ricciardo driving for Haas in 2023, then that's what you get.
We haven't been wrong with our spurious claims.
So that's why we'll keep doing it obnoxiously until we are wrong, and then we'll double down on it. Hey,
anyway.
Look, that was quite the initial headline that obviously turned into a big chat there. Let's get back to what else is Verstappening. So next topic, back to Red Bull again. Raging number one Bulls. During the week, Christian Horner came out and said that it doesn't matter which of his drivers win the championship. As we touched on last week, on the basis that team orders weren't given in Barcelona, that saw Perez have to give up what was first position at the time to Max, and the hypothetical situation in which Sergio was then able to maintain his pace and finish ahead of Max, Sergio would only be 1 point behind Max in the Drivers' Championship. So with 15 races left, you feel like, for me anyway, you feel like Christian can say that because there are still so many races to go, and that he probably believes it's inevitable that Max will eventually put points distance between he and Sergio, that such a comment from Christian won't have to hold up. But what happens if the gap doesn't reveal itself? We've seen clusterfuck situations happen when both drivers from the one team are pushing to win a championship. I mean, we had it with Red Bull, with Webber and Vettel, obviously with Mercedes, with Rosberg and Hamilton. Tay, Ev, surely Horner will be eating his words as they inevitably give preference to Max.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be eating them because Jos Verstappen will be shoving them down his throat with his fist.
What a headline.
Yeah.
Like foie gras.
Yeah.
Force
fatten me up.
Open your mouth, Horner.
But it's such an empty statement, though. Everybody would know. Everybody would hear that and go, Christian, you're full of shit. Matt, and we've spoken about it. And again, we're not being anti-Red Bull here. We're just being
Bullshit.
making statements for the sake of making... Yeah, anti-bullshit. Brilliant, right? Like, I'm bullshit, man. I fly in and call bullshit whenever I hear it, right? There's no way that Christian believes what he said. Like, it's the political and diplomatic thing to say. There is no way he believes that.
Track record all about Horner is that he's always got one.
Yeah.
He's always got one.
Great
Is
shout,
it going to
Tay.
be,
He does.
you know,
He does.
if it does happen that Max has to pull over and let Sergio through?
That wouldn't
Do you
God,
really
can you
think
imagine
Max is
that?
going to do that?
The number one car.
Yeah.
The number
No
one car.
way.
No way. Hey, Tay, just to your point about the number one, I mentioned in last week's pod that I'd kind of rediscovered Drive to Survive Season 1, and I was watching this amazingly awkward scene caught on camera in Monaco with Christian Horner talking to Danny Ricciardo's dad and saying, we don't have number one
I
drivers
remember
here.
that.
You know, Dad. And I was just like... Oh, you know, what a comment that just kind of stands the test of time. And this feels a bit like that again, right? Like, so anyways, look, we don't have to labour on that. I think it just reiterates, you know, our confirmation bias. We don't believe it. I think if Sergio continues to put in these challenges and this unbelievable drive, all week there has been headlines about Sergio Perez being a genuine championship contender. Let me tell you, come summer break, there is no way in God's given earth within Red Bull camp that Sergio has that belief. No way.
Nah.
Okay, next topic, salary suffering. It's come out during the week that to accompany the cost cap that's been placed on teams for development on an annual basis, the next item on the list to mitigate and manage other drivers' salaries. So based on GQ, so again, another reliable kind of news source here, based on 22, Lewis's salary is first on the list at $50 million USD, through to Yuki Tsunoda at $750,000.
Such
poor
a
Yuki.
Substantial difference.
No wonder he can't afford a cleaner.
Whilst the specific detail to how it could work is yet to be revealed, possibly even defined, noting the reality of current contracts, but on the basis that its implementation is to continue to try level the playing field for all teams, potentially at the expense of losing key marquee promotional talent for F1, because, you know, to be fair, that is obviously kind of the opportunity with paying these big marquee promotional kind of drivers is they bring a lot of spotlight like Lewis and Max.
Yep.
Tay, would a salary cap be good for the sport? Do these guys get paid too much money or is it justified and who cares?
I think you would have to look at like other sports that have salary caps, right? And you see like the benefits or the not so benefits. Like one of the biggest things is that at least with a salary cap, you almost have a much fairer playing field across all the teams who can afford certain drivers and whatnot.
I just wanted to jump in and say, if I were Lewis, I would pay Yuki Tsunoda $750,001 just to drive me to and from the airport.
You are ridiculous.
It's a better salary, isn't it? Apparently, Lewis will drive a car somewhere, one of his cars, and then gets a tow truck to come pick it up because he likes to keep his kilometres low. So if that doesn't spell I've got too much money, then I don't know what does. But Tay, just quickly, does the US sports? I don't think they have salary caps.
No,
Premier League
I can tell you right now. So, for instance, the San Diego Padres, right? They spent two big players in the Padres were bought for the equivalent of over $600 million over, I think, 15 years, and there is no cap.
So actually, I think only the only sports I can think of are actually Australian-based, and that's simply because we don't have the commercial dollars in sport to be able to kind of pay players too much, and so they need, and again, from a TV commercial, right? So, but that said, like time and time again, that sports that do mandate a salary cap, what you often find, and I'm sure if they did introduce to the F1, that the teams would do their best to find other ways to financially support and incentivize contracts, like. Look, here's a free $15 million home in Monaco that's been provided by our sponsor and hence doesn't fall into our salary cap restrictions. Anyways, look, it's going to be really interesting to see how this unfolds. Ev, you'll be happy to know that Max Verstappen's manager has been very vocal about it this week. Obviously, he's not a fan, and why would you be if your commission's going to get halved or potentially... In saying that, it wouldn't impact Max because they couldn't introduce a salary cap on current contracts. because they're legal binding documents. So, you couldn't see this coming in until at least 2028.
All future contracts.
Yeah. It's an interesting concept. I don't disagree with it. I just don't know how you'd introduce it. Right, next one. And Ev, you'll love this in terms of our ability to predict future conversations in the past, but island hopping fixture. As some of our regular listeners would enjoy, some weeks ago in one of our episodes, I think it was when we were talking all things Miami and the ridiculousness of teams flying to Australia, to Italy, to US, to Spain, and in between all of those flying back home to the UK, and the genuine impact that had on the environment, let alone the cost to do so. Well, the F1 have heard us again and come out this week and suggested that they're looking to group races by way of region for potential future calendars. Now, granted, in what I've seen and read to date, nowhere does it actually say due to impact of environment that this was being considered, and rather in a bid to minimise and reduce costs regarding travel and the pressure that's then putting on the team's cost cap. My understanding is that in the first 7 rounds of this year alone, not including those return trips to home between races, the teams have amassed a scary 28,000 miles of travel. So regardless of motivation, though, but regardless of the motivation, which I would challenge, but let's put it aside, at the end of the day, it's a good thing for the environment nonetheless. Ev, is this feasible, bearing in mind that each hosting city will have preferred times of year, key things that they want to build their hosting fixture around?
So Monaco, it's historically always at the same, roughly around the same time of year. Same with Silverstone, things like that. And
Barcelona.
You don't want Northern European races in the winter, for example, because it's just too cold. The tracks are too cold. There's too much rain.
Too wet.
Yeah. So whether or not that's going to be feasible while also satisfying those, the corporations that own the tracks and who are paying tens of millions for it.
Yeah.
Look at Bahrain and other places that want the first race or they want the last race.
Well, look at Australia. Like, where does Australia fit on any kind of island hop
for Australia?
Because we're so far away.
Yeah, but I mean, you've got Japan and you've got Singapore and the Chinese.
Yeah, so you could go on your way then and
that's
on your way back.
That's the only way that would work.
But fair call.
But there is no good time in the year for Australia, I think. As we saw this year, the sun was too low because of the time.
I was just going to say,
All right, so Tay, as a US fan, the thought of going from one US race in Texas to a couple in a row in Miami, Texas, Vegas, and then perhaps Canada next door, a good thing, or is that F1 American saturation right
I was just going to I would generally feel like it would be too much, and especially after Miami.
I think Digby would lose his mind.
But again, it all comes down to, like,
he'd have a 6-week erection.
It sort of stems on with the over-American saturation, if we want to go down that way. Like, you would essentially want to make sure that people who are coming in and being on the pit lane and doing all the starting grid and all that sort of stuff are genuinely there for the love of F1 and not being there to get their 5 minutes.
Well, we've established that's
exactly.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Exactly. So based on that, then you wouldn't want to have 3 in a row.
Yeah, I don't think you would. But again, that's the point, right? So we're talking about it from kind of a subjective remit. You take it from the commercial side, the logistics side. I mean, what a fucking nightmare it's going to be for that person's job to determine that. However, we all agree that it's something that definitely needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
All right, what do we got next? Yes, Ev, you'll like this one.
Here we go.
Horner's heroic. After his team's Monaco win, a photo of Christian Horner did the rounds this week in which he seemed to be sharing bubbles and a celebration with F1 CEO Stefano Dominicelli, FIA President Mohammed Ben.
None of us have got one name right. Show Guan Yu.
All right, well, I'm just one CEO, FIA President, and Liberty Media Head. Some big wigs that are clearly core to not only running, but regulating every part of the competition and its offering. Ev, surely after what happened in Abu Dhabi last year, with the admitted fuck-up by the FIA and F1 that saw Max Verstappen perhaps wrongly awarded world champion in the final race, coupled with the reality that Red Bull are a savvy media business, this is the type of stuff that surely they shouldn't be seen to be doing. This doesn't look good.
No, well, yeah, it doesn't look good. I don't read too much into it. They're all just having they're just chatting. I mean,
so am I and F1 Twitter just getting outraged over nothing? Okay, all right, fair point. And look, we don't always have to dive into deep debate. I just feel it felt like for a really strong media savvy business like Red Bull, particularly after the FIA had just quickly dismissed Ferrari's protest over Red Bull winning that race when clearly there was an infringement.
Cutting the...
Yeah. It just felt like it was a bit
bad taste.
Well, yeah.
Well, they would have gone over to congratulate him anyway, and they would have had a glass of champagne for a job well done for all concerned. You know, another successful Monaco Grand Prix in the can. But no, as for there being any sort of lurid
conspiracy
reason for this, no, I think they're just...
So granted that the motivation was completely likely innocent. Well, it was. Who are we to judge? However, surely for the authenticity and credibility, which, by the way, you know, the new F1 CEO came out at the beginning of the year and talked about how important the credibility of that and the FIA were. Surely for the credibility of the sport in general, regardless of how innocent it was, teams should significantly be distanced from such groups and individuals.
Again, it's all out of context, though, isn't it? Because
Absolutely.
we didn't see, they might have been shaking hands and having a conversation with the other team principals.
Yeah, but Tay, you work on the basis that you think human beings give a shit about context and that they're not entitled to be offended by everything that they see.
No, I'm basing on the fact that drama doesn't bring clicks.
All right, so one more topic for today, F1 teams of the future. Now, we're not going to go on about this one too much because we covered a bit of it last week when we discussed the all but guaranteed arrival of Porsche and Audi to F1 for 2026. Loosely recapping, Ev, tell me if I'm wrong. Understanding is that Porsche is likely to enter the sport as an engine powertrain manufacturer for Red Bull, and that Audi may come in as a constructor, possibly buying out Aston Martin.
Yes.
Probably butchered that to the nth degree for those that really know. Yeah. But you get the gist. But today's point, particularly because we've got our own US correspondent here, it's regarding the push for Andretti Racing to be on the grid as an all-US team by 2024. Tay, the F1 have made their US ambitions clear. What would an all-American team look like, particularly in their bid to go ahead with NASCAR?
I think he's been fighting for this. Michael Andretti's been fighting for this for a long time. And like the pedigree, like he was in it in the 90s, sort of overshadowed definitely at McLaren with Senna. And then, of course, his dad back in the 70s. So their racing pedigree is there.
And they're quite involved. Like they're a big motorsport brand, aren't they?
Oh, they're huge. They're in everything out here.
Yeah.
And they're successful in everything. I think at the end of the day, it's inevitable. They are going to have a team. It's just whether or not, so last year, in prep for this year's F1, they were in talks of buying out Sabre, as in Alfa Romeo.
Sauber.
But that all fell aside. And then in Miami, he was going along and talking to all the principals, almost doing like a petition to try.
He did do a petition.
Yes, but he got two names. He didn't even go to Toto because he stopped and had a long conversation with Horner, which Horner never signed off on. And basically, Toto's biggest concern is that if another team were to join, it would dilute the profits coming for all the teams based on the current F1 10 teams.
But in saying that, don't you have to pay $200 million just to get in?
I think it's $250, and so that offsets that dilution. If you imagine it like having stock in a company and somebody wants to come in and you need to dilute the stock, then that new team has to pay to recover those losses for everybody else, which tells you, where everybody's priorities are in Formula One. And then on top of that 250, opening bid, you then need to be able to fund your team and pay the drivers. Presumably he'd want like American drivers.
Well, yeah, so he's come out and said, and again, it'll be really interesting to see how F1 navigate this because obviously, as I said, they've got a big American agenda. He's come out and said that it would be all American by way of the drivers would be American, the factory would be American, the car would be built in America. So, in saying that, Ev, 2024, that's a season and a half away. He'd have to be in motion with all of that by now, wouldn't he?
I think that it'll be 2026 when the new regulations come in. I think that makes the most amount of sense.
And Ev, just very quickly you might know, but is Gene Haas, is he American? And Haas Racing, is that not American?
Haas is American.
So why haven't they ever tried to own the American-only thing, the US kind of...
I don't think Gene Haas cares.
Probably because that wasn't their... I don't think that was a thing. They might have been more European-American.
Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that Haas Engineering, like the company, they make the Indy cars. They actually make the chassis.
Oh, okay.
So, because they're all got the same car in IndyCar, which is an open wheel racing, and so that's where they have their pedigree in open wheel racing, and how you can argue that because they're based in America, that's kind of a bit more palatable than what Andretti's talking about.
All right, well-
I'm sure he'll come in, by the way. I've no doubt.
You reckon he's coming?
He will.
You reckon
he will. Yeah, he's coming.
Well, there you go. Well,
Yeah.
very good. Okay, so we've made a
Big
call
swings.
in this session on who's going to be driving next year and what teams are going to line up in 2026. So clearly we've covered off a huge amount. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's never a dull moment, so they say. But you should be pretty well up to date now, and you should feel very well informed and educated. Even if it's all wildly wrong, we made it sound compelling.
That's right.
So having discussed what's happened, let's dive into what will happen with a bit of a preview of all things Baku GP this weekend. Come tomorrow, the circus of F1 will be well and truly embedded on the shores of the Caspian Sea, in readiness of one of the calendar's newest editions. Just on that, F1 race aside, Ev Tay, do you guys have any interest in ever visiting Baku?
The cultural centre of Eurasia.
Yeah, well, it actually looks pretty amazing come race day, right? The backdrop is incredible.
The architecture's beautiful. And
Yeah.
the weather always looks really nice.
I got to admit, I'd be absolutely pretending if I've ever genuinely looked into it. In fact, I can't ever think of hearing about Baku or even, and I know this sounds terrible, but I don't think I'd heard of Azerbaijan as a country until the F1.
I had. Before F1 came on, I remember it was part of the Euro Song Contest, and they hosted it there.
Very good. There you go. Eurovision. Talking about all the good shit.
We're the idiots of F1 after all.
Yeah. That said, the tourism brochures actually paint it to be a really contemporary, city that's crisscrossed with history. I think they say where the East meets the West.
Yep.
But look, actually, just putting a call out there, if any of our listeners have actually been there, hit us up. Like, what was it like? Why'd you go, and would you go again? Because I'm really curious. Again, this is the opportunity of sport tourism, and one of the beautiful things about F1 is they do travel around the world, and you get introduced to these cities, and you get access, obviously through the TV to these beautiful destinations and places you, again, like I said, you never heard of. I'm really curious. I'd love to know what Baku's like. But back to the actual race. As we alluded to last week, no one driver has ever won more than one race here. And including the 2016 European Grand Prix, which was raced at Baku, only 2 constructors have ever won. So Rosberg for Mercedes in 2016, Danny Rick for Red Bull in 2017, Hamilton in 2018, Bottas in 2019, and Perez last year in 2021. I think COVID was the reason for it not existing as a fixture in 2020.
Yeah, that is correct.
That said, as the newest street circuit on the calendar, 22 looks to be an enticing watch, given it's a circuit made up of a mixture of wide and open and tight and twisty turns. You got the long main straight along the shoreline, which has been described as, a slipstreaming mecca, or a death trap for the likes of Max Verstappen, should your tyre explode halfway down it. And with the cars able to run, let's say, 3 abreast into turn 1, there is loads of room for drama and excitement. Just like Monaco, the slightest of mistakes are going to be punished quickly and severely. In terms of car setup, the teams are forced to choose between high downforce for the twisty bits or less drag, low downforce for the straight. Ev, we've seen those 2 very different setup philosophies play out in the previous races, particularly between Red Bull and Ferrari. Based on what we've seen so far this season, who's this track going to suit and why?
I think it's going to be pretty even. I mean, Red Bull are doing better with their fault. So whether or not they've done something to change that, we've seen Ferrari is still strong and Mercedes have the fastest car in a speed trap. So for a track that has lots of long straights, you'd have to say, Mercedes should be really good. I picked Mercedes for Monaco.
Yeah, you did.
Funnily enough, no one has ever won it twice.
Yeah, no driver has ever won it twice.
And there's only been 2 drivers who have ever won it from being in pole. And a lot of the drivers who have qualified between 6th and 10th have ended up coming in and winning it. So it is really anyone's game.
Yeah. So on the basis that we continue to follow with this idea that no one driver will win it again, it's either going to George Russell or Max Verstappen.
You heard it here first.
Oh no, Charles Leclerc.
I think it'd be down to Max and Charles.
I want Sergio to win. Throw the cat with the pigeons.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's won
Let's
it before.
see what Joss has to say now.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Just
on that, it's time for the somewhat comical, albeit it's supposed to be serious, Ollie's odds. Like Lewis Hamilton, I'm desperately seeking a win here. Last time out in Monaco did see me make some ground back, but I got it wrong with the Leclerc, Perez and Verstappen podium prediction versus the eventual Perez, Sainz and Verstappen. So I got Verstappen right. But to be fair, I wasn't completely far off. Had Charles not have been stitched up by his team, a Leclerc, Perez and Verstappen result could seriously have been the case, obviously acknowledging that Sainz would have needed to be overtaken at some point by Max. Anyways, coulda, shoulda, woulda. Looking at this week, I'm backing a huge bounce back by Ferrari here, and I'm calling a Leclerc Sainz top 2, with Perez coming in to claim third. I think Max will DNF, and also because I've got to put some positivity in the air, and I can hear Digby turning in his eventual grave, I'm calling a Ricciardo top 5 here.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I want that to happen.
Yeah,
so
what do you guys
that
think
would
of
be
that?
Nice.
How does that sit with
No,
you?
never in a million years.
Never in a million years?
Something disappointing is
rough.
going to happen for Daniel.
Oh, the comeback kid.
nah,
Come on, this is the moment.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
No, it isn't.
Hey, for those also interested, just before actual race day, on the basis that my top 3 are actually locked in regardless of what happens in qualifying, I also take a stab at the top 10 in order. That's obviously even more deplorable than my record for the top 3. But I've realised that if I pay close enough attention over the weekend, I can actually get a few right. The key is to just pay attention.
Pay attention.
Pay attention, Ev.
Somebody sound the alarm. It's Haas, you been paying attention. Goodness me. To date, we've seen 10 rounds of what is quickly becoming the F1 world's favourite quiz. For the second week in a running, Team Digby's reserve driver Tay will lock horns in a battle with the half-wits against our apparent resident F1 expert, Ev. Now, Ev, I feel like the idea of you being our resident F1 expert has been restored somewhat with some credibility last week when you claimed your first win, following, I think it was something like 6 losses in a row. The score count currently stands at Ev 3, Digby 7.
Yeah.
But after a hugely valiant effort last week, I think the bookies' money might actually be on Tay today.
All his odds on Haas, you've been paying attention.
For those that are knee-deep in this conversation, by way of a quick overview to help you understand what on earth is going on here, Haas, you've been paying attention is our weekly F1 quiz, where come the end of the season, which is likely to see about 30 rounds in total, the loser will need to donate $500 to a charity of the winner's choice. So without further ado...
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event.
Let's get ready to rumble. So Tay, as a returning guest, buzzer check please, sir. What you got?
Andretti Racing.
Very good. All right. And Ev, like a horse with a lame leg, put us out of our misery with what you've landed on today.
Alonso's staying.
Oh, very good. Yeah, so much energy and enthusiasm.
Such a bitch.
Fucking hell. This is deplorable.
Get it in
All right,
there.
here we go. 6 questions. First to buzz gets first swing. Get it wrong, the other has a crack. Question 1. Listen up, boys. In looking at the current grid and those that have a contract that lasts longer than the rest of the year, who has the longest contract on public record?
Andretti Racing.
What you got?
Max Verstappen.
Very good. Currently contracted to?
2028.
Fuck me.
Question 2. Note that the individual to the closest 10 will be awarded the point. We discussed earlier the idea of new constructors, plural, potentially joining the F1 grid from 2026 onwards. Since the first such event in 1950, how many constructors have raced in at least one Formula One race? Clue, so you don't completely embarrass yourself, it's more than 100.
Alonso's staying.
What you got?
I'm going to say, I don't know, 150 then.
You're wrong.
There were so many in the 70s.
Yeah,
They were
yeah.
like, every race had a whole different grid,
Team.
essentially.
Tay, what do you got?
You can't give me anything. You can't
No,
give
I've
me
given you guys,
higher or
you
lower.
got the clue. You got the clue,
Yeah.
it's more than 100.
I'm going to do 120.
Wrong. The answer is actually 171 as of Monaco
Oh,
22
damn it.
GP.
Fuck, I knew I should have gone up.
Yeah,
gone up.
to your point, Ev. I was gobsmacked by that.
That's
Particularly because I've only seen 10. Granted, there's a couple of name changes like Renault to Alpine.
yeah.
Question 3. Building off of the last question and awarding half a point for each right answer, name the top 5. It doesn't need to be in order by way of number of races entered, constructors in that same period. And name the top 5 constructors since day one.
Andretti Racing. Mercedes.
Wrong. You're out.
Really?
You're wrong. Yep. Yeah. Ev, free hit, mate. What do you got?
Well, Ferrari.
Half
Yeah.
a point.
There you go. I actually would have gone Mercedes. I thought that was a good shout. Williams.
Yep. 3 more.
Lotus.
Yep.
Audi.
Audi.
They're not even in it now.
Yeah, but they were there from the beginning.
Yeah, right. Well, no, that's not. No. The other two were McLaren and Sauber.
Yeah. All right, good chat.
Oh, Mercedes ruined it for me.
Mercedes as a constructor have only been in it since when Lewis started driving for him.
No, not when Lewis. When Schumacher.
Schumacher, sorry. Yeah. Hamilton replaced
Rosberg.
Schumacher. Yeah. So what'd you get? You got 3. So 1.5 to 1.
Boom.
Right. Question 4. Looking at Baku in readiness for this weekend's race. Now, I have to flag that there may be some contention over this next question, particularly because some report that Mexico may in fact be the track. But based on some reports, the highest top speed ever for a Formula 1 car during a race was set at Baku GP in 2016. To the closest tenth, what was that speed?
It was Andrade Racing.
What do you got?
Was it Alonso doing 326
You're wrong.
kilometers an hour?
Both wrong. Ev?
What, by the driver and the speed?
Yeah.
Well, then I'll go a little bit.
I know it now.
The only thing I can think of is to go higher. And if it's within a tenth, then I'd go like 330 or something.
300.
Can I say it? I know it.
Well,
Yeah,
better.
well,
You're not going to get the point, but you want to.
I won't get the point.
Yeah.
It's Bottas at 378.
Yeah, it was Bottas at 378 kilometers per hour.
Yeah.
Which you've then just gone and fucked my next question, which was who was the driver responsible for that speed? So you've just shot yourself there, Tay.
Oh, boom.
You're down 1.5 to 1.
I didn't know I was going to do a follow-up.
Well, yeah, that's why you just got to listen and give the answers to the questions asked.
2.5 to 1.
So
2.5 to 1.
We're into the last question, and it's 1.5 to 1.
What?
1.5 to 1. Question 6. And to be honest with you, whoever gets this wins. Diving back into our intent to educate, what is the official language of Azerbaijan? Tay, you're gonna have to get this, Tay, because if Ev can just not answer and he wins.
This is my Monaco. I'm just going to park the car and it can't get past me.
Ev's parked the bus.
Right.
Quick, 5 seconds.
Okay, Andrade Racing.
What do you got?
I feel like we're going to know this the second.
Oh, God.
3,
I don't
2,
I can't.
nothing.
I'm blanking.
I mean, to be fair, it's probably really hard for you because you've struggled to pronounce the name as is, but it's Azerbaijani. So there you
That's
go.
it. That was it. I was actually going to... this is really bad. I was going to throw out a shout. I was like, Azerbaijanis.
You're going to play your go-to.
Yeah.
Just chucking out a Y at the end of everything.
Yeah.
Based on the ever-reliable Google, it's a Turkic language closely related to and partially mutually intelligible with modern Turkish. So there you go. Ev, you've done it again.
2 in a
Somehow,
row.
you've literally fucking crawled over that finish line and you've grabbed back another point. So that's
It's only because I fucked it for myself.
yeah, well, you did.
I did a Danny Ricciardo. I did a Danny Ricciardo.
You would have won. You finished too early, mate. You blew your load too early and you gave away the answer to the next question.
Right.
So there you go. Our winner is Ev. We're now 7-4. So Digby's got to come back. He's coming back to a run of momentum from F1's resident expert. Amazing. That's it for another amazing battle. Results aside, a huge shout out to you, Tay. You've jumped in and to be honest with you, you've spared no punches in either week in your combat with Ev. Just like a Williams reserve driver coming into the team and posting equal, if not faster, lap times than Latifi. A brave and gallant effort that will be remembered in folklore. You can hear the whispers in the town hall that just maybe he could have been the one, the F1 expert this show has been looking for. Bravo, Tay. Well done, mate. Let's get you back later in the season to really ruffle some shit up. Right. Excitingly, we're wrapping up this week's episode off of that amazing high and bundle of energy and excitement. We've managed to make it to the end as, again, the checkered wave flags. Checkered flag waves. Now, on the basis that Diggs' doctor and bandmates give him the all clear, the Big Red will be back next week as we review all things Baku GP and ready ourselves to do it all over again in the lead up to all things Canada, obviously. Where excitingly, for every F1 fan out there, we can celebrate the home Grand Prix hometown heroes of Stroll and Latifi. Fuck, I can hear the tumbleweeds
DNFs
already.
all around.
Yeah. As always, in signing off with some lasting comments, please do remember, if you've had a giggle, learned something, generally just enjoyed the chat, please do rate us on the likes of Spotify and Apple with maximum stars. Positively review us with some lovely comments. Share the pod with your loved ones and hated ones. And by all means, get in touch, either just to say hello, feature in a future What the FAQ, tee up a chance to come on the show and battle it out in our quiz, whatever. All those points of social proofing and feedback go a long way to convincing other idiots out there that we are worth a listen. So please do jump on and use your thumbs to help us build this podcast empire. And if you haven't already, also give us a follow on the socials, TikTok, Insta, Twitter, Idiots of F1, where we continue to pump out lots of different things. Tay, a massive thank you, mate, for jumping on this last few weeks and doing a stellar job as our reserve driver. You've been a legend, a gent, and a well-rounded, informed idiot. You fit the mold perfectly, and we can't wait to get you on again. Any final words for now that you want to leave us or with our audience with, mate?
No, not really. I'm looking forward to coming back whenever that time is. I've had a blast doing this the last 2 weeks, so looking forward to the next time.
Well, Digby's off to Europe in a couple of weeks ago, so, remember, this isn't goodbye. This is just see you later. He could, after all, get stuck in Amsterdam, lost in one of those alleys and never seen again. As mentioned, we'll be back again next week to review all things Azerbaijan and ready you and ourselves for a trip over the pond to North America. Ow! Until then, as always, you idiots, we are your idiots in racing. See you next time.
Bye.
Play the music, Tay.